Wassalatu ala Rasulullah wa alihi. System. One way to look at system is to treat it as a specific mechanism of action coordination. If you look at action, so behind action you have intentions, for example. And actions have purposes, I guess, or objects. Actions have, what else actions have? Action have consequences, yeah. These are important things. And if you have more than one action, so you have intentions interlocking, purposes interlocking, objects, consequences, so how to coordinate between all these. One way to look at action and action coordination is from a participant's perspective. From that angle, intentions are very important. Purpose is very important. Consequences are very important. And purpose is defined intentionally, the intention of an individual. So that's one way to look at action, and it's from a participant's perspective. And that's not the way a system theory looks at it. Doesn't deny a possibility, but it abstracts from it. Participant's perspective. Try to see how we will see action and its relation to its purpose and consequences, and the problem of coordination of different actions if we abstract from the participant's perspective, especially if we abstract from intentions. So system theory doesn't necessarily claim to be the whole perspective. It's one important way of looking at action and action coordinations. So for example, language. If you look at language, you look at meaning, the concept of meaning. You can look at language from the perspective of participant's perspective, from the intention of an individual. And that's one legitimate way of looking at the phenomenon of meaning and how language works. But language, in a sense, is prior to individual. To a large extent, an individuality develops within language. It's a great tool of socialization, as we all know. So if we limit ourselves to understanding language only from a participant's perspective and meaning from the perspective of meaning, intention, then that would be for sure a very one-sided and incomplete understanding of language and how it works. And more than that, in this curious phenomena, the words are mine, I'm saying that. So they are attached to my intentions. But once I have uttered those words, I have no control over them. They take, whether they are written words or they are spoken words and they have been listened to and repeated, or they have been taped and people will listen to it even after I'm dead. And those words still will produce effect, positive or negative, and have consequences. So in a sense, words have life beyond my intentions, beyond my performance. So I mean, they need an agency to utter them, but once they have been uttered, they are beyond my control. They have life of their own. So in a similar way, you can think of action as individual acts. You need intentions, but once action has been performed, it is out of the control of the individual who has acted, and now it has its own mechanism, its own system of coordination, which is to a large extent irrespective of intention of the individual who first generated that action or performed that action. So that's the basic, I think, one of the basic insights of system theory. When we looking at social system, we have to go beyond the intentions of an individual and go beyond the individual and focus on actions and their mechanism of coordination in their own right. Take an example of economic acts. So as a buyer or seller, my intentions are important. For understanding an economic act as a meaningful action. Why am I spending money? Or why I'm not spending money? Similarly, from the perspective of a seller, to understand his or her act, his or her intention to sell or not sell something is important. But in understanding market system, intentions are not sufficient. In fact, at the end of the day, those intentions are very minor after the fact. In most cases, in understanding market system. So in order to understand economic system, what you need to understand is market mechanism of coordination of action. Into a system in which one act follows from another act, and the intentions of the actors become less and less important because action determine each other. So actions, there's an anonymity of actions in that way. And what is more important than intention is whether buyer has money or not, whether she wants to spend money or not, for whatever reason, and whether seller has money or not, whether he or she wants to invest money or not, for example. So when we try to understand economic system from this perspective as an anonymous mechanism of the coordination of action through market, for example, then we are in the arena of system theory. Doesn't mean that we think that intentions of actors are not important, but what we are saying is they are not sufficient in explaining the economic system. And in system theory, when we study economic system, we abstract from the performative or participant's perspective of individual, and we see money and market as the way in which economic actions of different participants are coordinated without reference to their intentions. In fact, their actions determine their actions, in turn, their intentions. Like your own words determine your following actions or your following thought once you have uttered them. I mean, the words are your words as long as you haven't uttered them or you haven't written them. Once you have uttered them, once you have written them, they are no longer your words. They have life of their own. In a similar way, an action is your action, but once you have performed an action, then it is no longer your property. It has independent life in that sense. So that's the main thrust of inside of system theory, for example. So if we, from the perspective of system theory, economic system and money, for example, as a mechanism, the coordination of the action of different actors within market. This money is blind to intentions, blind to beliefs, blind to ideas, blind to programs, blind to interests. Not that those things are unimportant. Intentions are important, beliefs are important, programs are important, ideas are important, interests are important, but from the perspective of system theory, we try to understand economic system abstracting from there, because once a person spends money, this money takes a life of its own. But obviously, every system is that's a last thing, situated within a larger context. Society, life world, and that's basically Habermas's criticism. And depending on the nature of that life world, system will function a different way in different life world in different society. But that's something else. Okay, so I'll stop here. Continue, inshallah.